Sure.
David Farmer, thanks for speaking with Central Coast Newspapers once again, post-council meeting, a big council meeting, lots covered. You had 5 or 6 people speaking prior to the meeting. Can I start off with the first thing that people seem to be concerned about or interested in is the sale of the old Gosford Chambers and the adjacent lands in Gosford. I understand there's some progress there.
Yeah, certainly. We, as well publicised, council was running 2 admin buildings, and one of the reasons we went broke is we didn't take advantage of the efficiencies that were available by centralising your administration in one location. We save about $2 million a year by exiting the Gosford admin building. It's no longer staffed, and we run a small customer service centre a few hundred metres away from the existing Gosford admin centre, and that will move into the new regional library, which is about to start construction in the very near future, and which will deliver a really high quality customer service experience in the centre of Gosford. But so it was well publicised that we'd be looking to sell that building. It was one of the key parts of our financial recovery plan, and as part of that process, we were able to identify that the New South Wales government were very keen to redevelop a new TAFE facility, a new modern TAFE facility that met the broader needs of the vocational training and needs of this part of the world, and looked at our site to do that. So we entered into an MOU about 12 months ago, which is now expiring, which said we'll work together to progress a sale. We're now at a point where we're very, very close to being able to sign a contract for sale, but it's not quite there. So the administrator has approved that we progress the sale and authorised me to enter into a contract, which I hope to do early next year. That's a very important part of the redevelopment and I guess the rebirth of Gosford, the new university to the northern end, and the reimagined TAFE facility at the southern end will be really important educational accesses, and in between of those will be our regional library, which will serve as an asset and a resource for students of both of those institutions.
There's a lot on the slate you haven't even mentioned, which I'll ask you now about, the waterfront concept plans that you put forward and asked for feedback from the community. Those consultations have now formally closed. How did they go, and how was the feedback? Just without detail.
Sure. Look, we did a range of communication and feedback methods, but what we were overwhelmed by both the numbers and the sentiment. I think we had over 500,000 reaches of people on social media. That might be one person 5 times, not 500,000 individuals, but a significant amount of reach on social media. 1,700 people took the time to put a response on our website and a range of other polling pieces. We had 600-person random survey, professionally conducted survey. All of them showed an overwhelming support for the project to proceed. Clearly, there are a group of people who aren't as supportive, and we respect that. And then there was a whole heap of commentary, much of it which would be useful in terms of preference and how we might well progress it. Some of the things that we've identified is clearly we want to make sure that whatever crossing we put in place is an elegant solution and one that encourages people to integrate the foreshore with the balance of the CBD, and there'll need to be a fair bit of work on that. So this was really a status report on that particular matter.
It's a remarkably large amount of people, Dave. Just sorry to interrupt, but that's a remarkably large amount of people who were interested in that and took the time to write something.
Yeah, look, sometimes you just get to a point, and I think I've spoken about this in public in a number of other occasions. Sometimes a project or a concept just has a time, and it might be basically the same or same. This is the same in sentiment, not necessarily the same in pure form as some previous projects, but they weren't the right time, and now perhaps is the right time, and there's a general feeling in the community that this is something we need. And with the university and the TAFE and the continued growth of the the hospital precinct and that whole ecosystem around health there, and the work on the faster train coming to Gosford. If the government's going to spend, an enormous amount of money improving a high-speed rail link to Gosford, then Gosford itself needs to be vibrant. Part of Gosford being vibrant is that connection of the waterfront and a really exciting place for people on the waterfront. So yeah, it's very, very pleasing, and I think we've got some positive momentum in that direction. That's
good. Well, speaking of other changes, the space required, or the changes that you've slated for the open off-leash dog places, has attracted a lot of interest again. What have you to say about, or to those people that are just about to be affected by those changes?
Well, they're not about to be affected. We're making really clear there's no changes over the summer. The summer will stay, the status quo will remain. This report was essentially a status report, because it was of such interest to the community that we thought we'd check back in and make clear where we're at. There was a large amount of information in the initial discussion paper. We're now identified really 3 key issues that have come out where there wasn't sort of consensus, and that is some timing on the beach areas, particularly in the busier beach areas. The Pippi Point in Davistown off-leash area, which the proposal was to remove that and replace it with another site due to the presence or purported presence of nesting of an endangered species of stone curlew. And then the Haven off-leash area at Terrigal, where there have been some reasonably serious concerns held about public safety and the safety of animals because of the interaction of people, cars, and cliff edges, and rabbits that have led to safety issues for off-leash dogs, in interactions with kids, balls, large dogs, all sorts of stuff. So they're the contentious areas. So we're going to narrow that down. We're going to put out another more concise discussion paper focusing on these core issues that have been, I guess, narrowed down to through the consultation. There'll be some further scientific research into the stone curlew piece and a risk assessment piece done at the Haven. I think the piece on the timing on the beaches is something we'll be able to work through in a reasonably satisfactory way for all the community.
So no changes this summer?
No changes this summer. This will take us through the summer period to do the second phase of consultation and resolve. And ideally, we'll end up with a landing and a position for the following summer. I think the one piece I did want to focus on at the moment, there are 52 or 62, I think actually 62 off-leash areas available across the coast. So, we really are sport for choice. I've run a number of councils and we've never had anywhere near the number and of availability that we've got in this in this part of the world. And, for example, in Terrigal, the Haven is available, but Womberall Beach is much of Womberall Beach is an off-leash area as well, and it is heavily used. So, people have got options in your local area.
Well, that's great. I'll ask you just an open question about how the finances are tracking. I know that you do your monthly reporting, your quarterly reporting, and so on. As the CEO, are you comfortable where we are at the end of this calendar year?
Yeah, look, we went into Christmas last year with our income pieces undetermined. We didn't know what our future was in terms of our rating going forward, and our water and sewer determination hadn't been undertaken. And we managed to negotiate satisfactory outcomes in both those areas and have now a stable income piece to move forward on. If that didn't come through, then we were going to have to significantly downsize the organisation again, and with some really, I think, changes to levels of service the community wouldn't have appreciated and would have rejected. And we've started to turn the organisation, really not even started, we have turned the organisation around financially. We turned what was in in 2021 an $89 million loss, and 21, 22. Sorry, I'll start that again, David. We've turned a $160 million loss in the 2 previous financial years. We're just getting the finalisation of an audit with a $47 million surplus. So, you know, that's about almost $120 million turnaround in a year. That's been a lot of hard work by a lot of people. And we're now, you know, beginning and building the base for a much stronger organisation. We've set aside $50 million to repay some of our emergency debt early. The advantage of repaying that debt early is that that will free up cash flow that we can then put into services going forward. At the moment, you know, any better than anticipated financial performance, we're paying off that debt, which was really just an overdraft to get us by. But once we've dealt with that, so I'm hopeful that a combination of that $50 million plus some better than anticipated financial performance this year, plus the sale of the Gosford building, will get us very close to paying off the $100 million loan that resets in December next year. Right. And that will then free up, depending on interest rates, you know, $7 to $9 million a year of cash flow for us that we can then start to look at investing in services, particularly frontline services like open space maintenance and road maintenance.
Which so to finish off this discussion, of course, we're going to finish off with roads. You've had a massive challenge this year, or the community has had a massive challenge this year, navigating potholes. You've repaired tens of thousands of them, 2,500 kilometres of roads. How do you think the progress is going now, and will we get to a point where most of the potholes are repaired?
Yeah, look, our focus is obviously on the more heavily used and high-speed roads. As annoying as it is in your local road that might only have, you know, 50 vehicles a day, people can sort of poke their way up and down them. But the important ones are where people are travelling fast, and it's not safe for the vehicles or for people. So we have to focus on high speed, high traffic roads before we look at the, you know, your very local suburban roads. But this is an issue that's been caused by 2 factors. One, the underlying standard of our infrastructure is poor. We've been a low rating council for a long time. Even after our recent rate increase, our level of rates is still lower than our compatriots to the north that we're often compared with, Newcastle and Lake Macquarie. And you know, we've been underfunded significantly for a long period of time. The underlying standard of that infrastructure is poor, and it will take a long time of gradual improvement to bring that up to standard. So we'll work on dealing with the most acute pieces, primarily by what we call heavy patching, which I'm sure people have seen around, where we deal with those areas that are perhaps the worst areas. And that lasts for several years. But the real answer is significant road reconstruction. And that is very expensive and can be quite disruptive. And there's limited capacity in the market right now. We've had an extraordinary wet year, though it feels reasonably dry now. But, you know, up until about the end of September, we had extraordinary rain right up and down the East Coast. And the resources that are available to undertake that work are tightly stretched. So even if we had enormous amounts of money, we're not going to be able to deal with that, nor is any other council or any other road maintenance authority be able to do that overnight. I've done, you know, been in similar situations before, and it will take, you know, years of continued investment, and you'll see a gradual improvement in the standard of the roads. As I said,
just to interrupt, I see the NRMA came out this week and named the Central Coast Council as among the worst backlog in the state, $250 million or more in backlog. Are you comfortable that the state and federal government now, they have stumped up a little bit of money for your maintenance program? Are you comfortable they understand the extent of it?
Yeah, look, I think they do, but, you know, it's a big amount of money. And as I said, you can give us $40 million, which we've got. You then to actually spend that money well to get the biggest bang for your buck is a challenge. So what we need is not, a sugar fix for 1 year, because it won't be well spent. People will get frustrated. What we need is a sustained program of investment. And, it's one of those things that over 10 years, you'll look back and say, well, I can't believe how far we've gone. But in 1 year, getting the it's about getting drainage. It's making sure, essentially, if you can keep the water off roads and you can keep your heavy vehicles onto well-constructed roads, you're a long way to moving forward. But many of our roads are constructed to low standards. So as soon as you get water in them, and as soon as you get a heavy vehicle on them, in combination, they start to fall apart. Yeah. So we have to rebuild our roads to higher standards and maintain them, and that will take years. But there'll be years of gradual improvement, and we've seen improvement in the last 3 months, but there's a long way to go to where I'm sure our community would expect us to be, but we'll get there.
All right. Well, look, if there's something else you'd like to say, other than, of course, Merry Christmas. You've had a big year, and I'm sure the staff are looking forward to their break. And
yeah, look, it has been a huge year, but we've got a lot done. 2021 was a year of almost just crisis hanging on. 2 years ago, we didn't know whether we could pay our staff and our creditors. Really, at about this time 2 years ago, there was a real chance of the then administrator walking away because we weren't able to function, and really quite catastrophic outcomes for staff not getting paid at Christmas, and the community not having a whole range of things serviced. So we've ended this year performing well financially and with a strengthening position. The organisation is beginning to refocus after a significant downsizing, and we're starting to deliver on some really key projects. So I think we've come a long way. There's a lot of work to be done. So last year was a year of crisis. This year was a year of stabilisation, and next year we'll start to make some growth. And I'm pretty confident the community will start to see some improvements in our services as we start to adapt to living with what's in a new world of less resources, living within our means, under promising and over delivering, and earning back the trust of the community.
Well, that's a wonderful thing to finish off. And of course, we've got 2 World Cup teams, Women's World Cup teams.
Absolutely
fan. Is exciting.
Sorry. Look, that is absolutely fantastic news. I had heard we were getting 1, and then to hear that we were getting 2, and then we get 2 of the top 5 in the world, and from major traditional footballing nations, is just superb. And so, from a sporting perspective, it's really exciting. From a tourism and a national profile perspective, it's really, really exciting. And there's 3 venues in Sydney, and there's 2 on the Central Coast. So when places like my old stomping ground of the Illawarra would be sitting there quite jealous that they haven't been selected, and there'd be a range of other locations around the state that would be saying, well, why didn't what about me? And so we should be very, very happy. And that's driven in some ways by the fact that we own both the stadium, Central Coast Stadium, which is one of the training venues, and the Tuggerah Lakes facility, which was built, or the Tuggerah sporting facility was built as a specific events-based facility. We often get criticism from local groups that they're not able to book it permanently, and it's designed to attract events like that. It will also be the base, for example, for the Koori Knockout, which is again another huge event, which will happen just after our grand final next year. And so that specific project, and that was developed to be able to host major events. And because of that, it's quarantined from regular community use, because regular community use would then sterilise it for major events. And so we're starting to see the the benefits of that being kept in that.
And of course, we have
a very exciting time.
We have the Mariners the A-League women's also starting up next year, and seems to be it's going to be a great sport-led recovery in 2023.
Yeah. What was fantastic, I went to the Matildas game, was the number of families there, particularly and with young girls. That was just a completely different demographic than I've ever seen at a sporting event, and I've been to plenty in my time. And it was a really exciting time from not just the game on the pitch, but to look at the crowd and the different demographic that it attracts and the possibilities that it shows that young women can achieve. So it was really, really heartening and really, really pleasing.
All right. Well, look, thanks again for speaking with us again and this year, for your constant communication with us and all of the stories that were published. There's been hundreds of them. So
no problems, and I'll pass on Rick's apologise. He'd love to be in here, but he's laid up with a lurgy. He managed to get through the council meeting with a few drugs last night, and occasionally muting himself to have a coughing fit. So I'm your poor substitute.
All right. Well, look, thank you, poor substitute, and humble servant. We'll speak to you later. Thank you.
No problems. Thank you.
Bye.
Cheers.